We're at it again about the the war on terror, and I just want people to understand my thinking, and I believe Senator Ayotte, that we believe our nation is at war, and that al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda operatives, whether they're U.S. citizens or not, should be viewed from the law of armed conflict prism, that an enemy combatant traditionally has been held and tried by the military. And we're here today to talk about bin Laden's son-in-law. I'm just reading from press accounts about Abu Ghayth is I think his name, but it's this gentleman right here. This is the guy we're talking about. We have a prohibition from removing enemy combatants held at Guantanamo Bay into the United States for civilian court trial. We believe firmly that Gitmo, there is no substitute for it, that Congress will agree upon, that it is the right place to put an enemy combatant for interrogation and, when at all possible, trial. And we believe the administration's decision here to bring this person to New York City, if that's what's happened, without letting Congress know, is a very bad precedent to set. We believe very firmly that the Congress has tried to tell the administration, when it comes to people like this, that we want them to go to Gitmo to be held in military custody for interrogation purposes. So I'm going to follow this case very closely. I think we're now setting a new precedent that will come back to bite us. I've tried to be fair to the administration. I think the drone program, they've used it wisely and responsibly. I think some people on our side have basically attacked the program in a very illogical way. They have a right to their opinion, but I think the drone program is a tactical weapon in the war on terror that served the nation well, and the president's been very responsible. And the idea that the president could use a drone to attack someone sitting in a cafe who's done nothing wrong is really not the issue of our time. I don't think anybody asked President Bush that. So I just don't want to take the serious subject matter into an area that I don't think is worthy of the debate. Now, having said that, we are going to follow this case very closely. And to the administration, why did you not send this person to Guantanamo Bay to be held as an enemy combatant for intelligence gathering purposes? I have been firm against torture, but I do believe that Guantanamo Bay is a secure military facility that provides this country a great asset, and we received a lot of information from Guantanamo Bay detainees. The question is about future captures. No one has spoken more eloquently about this than Senator Ayotte. We're a nation without a jail. This administration will not use Guantanamo Bay. This administration seems adverse to the idea of treating future captures like this as enemy combatants. By taking that option off the table, you're putting people like this into federal court, giving them the same constitutional rights as an American citizen, but more than anything else, you're destroying the ability to hold them under the law of war for intelligence gathering purposes. So we're putting the administration on notice. We think that sneaking this guy into the country, clearly going around the intent of Congress when it comes to enemy combatants, will be challenged. I don't know what they're going to charge him with. I don't know the details of what they plan for this gentleman, but I do know this. If this man, the spokesman for 9/11, is not an enemy combatant, who would be? And I will read to you in a moment some of the things he said about the attack. With that, I'll turn it over to Senator Ayotte, the former Attorney General of New Hampshire.
Thank you so much, Senator Graham. And here's where my concern was with all of this. This is Sulaiman Abu Ghayth is alleged to have, he is the son-in-law of Osama bin Laden. He is someone who is alleged to be, from the reporting, one of the top, in the top echelon of al-Qaeda. And there has also been information reported that he was in fact involved in the planning of 9/11 attacks and described as certainly a major core al-Qaeda official. And if there's any doubt about that, just look at him sitting next to bin Laden after the attacks on September 11th, which were, of course, attacks on our country. He also, in late 2001, and I believe this is around the time of this here picture that you're looking at, appeared on Arab television and urged Muslims to fight the United States and warned that there would be more 9/11 type attacks from obviously al-Qaeda, led by then still alive Osama bin Laden. So here is someone who clearly is an enemy combatant. And there have been announcements by the administration that they would, we have heard, and that this has not been confirmed, but we're very concerned and why we're following this case, that he would be transferred to New York City. Do you remember the discussion we had with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in New York City? Well, what this comes down to, and what the concern that we have and why we will follow this case very closely, is that if you bring him to New York and put him in a civilian trial, then things like speedy presentment, Miranda applies to him. And when it comes to someone who has been a top official who, if it is true that he was involved in planning the events and attacks on our country on September 11th, then we have no doubt that he was a top official in al-Qaeda. Just look at him sitting there right next to Osama bin Laden after those attacks. We certainly don't want him to come to America before he has been fully interrogated to make sure that we know everything that he knows about al-Qaeda, and let him hear the words, "You have the right to remain silent." And so that's what this is about. If we criminalize the enemy combatants like that and bring them to America and apply all the rights, he's not an American citizen, that Americans have in civilian courts in this country, we lose valuable intelligence that can be used to prevent future attacks, can be used to understand further who else is involved in al-Qaeda, what they're planning against our country, and used to protect America. So he should be going to Gitmo. He should be kept there and questioned to make sure that we know everything that he knows. And the fact that we would be thinking of bringing him right to New York City, it really does not make sure that we know everything that he knows, that we protect America. And that's why we will be following this case very, very closely, because there's no doubt that on September 11th, our country was attacked on our own soil. And if this man, right next to Osama bin Laden, is involved in the attacks on our country on 9/11, don't you think it would be important that we not tell him he has the right to remain silent, that we find out everything that he knows, who he's been associated with, what he's been doing since then? Has he been involved in future attacks against us and our allies? And if we bring him to New York City, then all the rights that apply to an American citizen in our civilian court system will prevent us from doing that, and that's wrong.
I'll just give you a quick thing. My question is, are we outsourcing intelligence gathering? Was this man in the hands of a third country? Did we have access to him? Are we turning over interrogation to third countries? How long have we had him in American custody? How long were we able to question him in an American-controlled environment? I'm very disturbed about where we're headed here. I think when it comes to future captures, the Obama policy of not using Gitmo when it comes to enemy combatants is going to deny us valuable intelligence and make us less safe. The primary goal when you capture someone like this is to gather information. The secondary goal is to hold him accountable in a court of law, whether it be Article 3 or military commission. By avoiding Gitmo, you're doing one of two things. You're turning over the interrogation intelligence gathering to non-Americans, and you're denying the ability that the law of war grants you to hold a person as an enemy combatant to gather intelligence, because the criminal justice system does not have that component, nor should it. And here's what he said. Americans should know the storm of the plains will not stop. There are thousands of the Islamic nation's youths who are eager to die, just as the Americans are eager to live. He talked about we finally struck the heart of the homeland. So to the administration and my colleagues in Congress, this war is not over. There are more people out there who want to hurt us. And when we find somebody like this close to bin Laden in the senior al-Qaeda leadership, the last thing in the world we want to do, in my opinion, is put them in civilian court. This man should be in Guantanamo Bay.
May I also point out that one of the concerns I've had about the administration's detention policy, in fact, in October of 2011, on the CJS appropriations bill, I brought an amendment that would have prevented individuals who were not U.S. citizens from being tried in civilian courts if they were an enemy combatant involved in an attack on our country or alleged in planning that attack. And the reason I brought that is because it seems to me very inconsistent with what we're doing. We have the administration using the drone program overseas to take out individuals who fall underneath the authorization of the use of military force that Congress has given the administration to take out terrorists who are a threat to our country and our allies. And I certainly support that. But it's very inconsistent that we would take them out overseas but not put them in Guantanamo when we capture them to make sure that we can gather the full length of information and the full amount of information that they know. And from following all of these investigations and looking at them, we know that takes time. So that's an important question that we will have too as well. If he was interrogated by some foreign governments, I mean, how long could that have occurred, over what period? And because it often takes a longer period of time to make sure that you get the full opportunity to question an individual like that. And certainly one of the issues that I have is, you'll remember that capture they had of a man called Warsami. Because they wouldn't use Gitmo, they put him on a ship. And they had to eventually take him off the ship because they could only keep him on the ship for, I believe it was 60 days. And so that was the longest they could interrogate him, and then they put him in the civilian court system. So we're seeing a pattern here. And what our concern is making sure that, of course, we have a detention policy that's consistent, it makes sense, and most of all is focused on getting the information we need to prevent future attacks on our country and to protect Americans.
Can you confirm in any way that this gentleman here, this man here, is in U.S. custody? I mean, there are two classified intelligence briefings today with there are reports about it. You're having this press conference here. Can you confirm that this man's in U.S.
Well, knowing that we have one of the best medias in all the world, and that the media reports are pretty abundant, I guess the problem is I shouldn't be reading about this in the paper. I'm offended, quite frankly. I try to help the administration when I can. I've tried to be as logical and rational about what truly is an issue versus what is just a political statement. I've tried to stand by the administration when I think they're right. And I think the drone program has been responsibly used. I think what they're doing in terms of detention is incredibly irresponsible. So, if he was held by a third country, if that's true, how reliable was that third country in terms of being a partner to us? Secondly, is that what we want to be doing in terms of gathering information, relying on a third country? What kind of interrogation techniques do they use? So it's clear to me they snuck him in, if he's here, under the nose of most members of Congress, and clearly in violation of the spirit of what we, the Congress, have been telling the administration. We want people like him to go to Guantanamo Bay to be interrogated as an enemy combatant and charged, if possible, in military commission. But the number one goal for Lindsey Graham has always been gathering intelligence to find out what the enemy's up to. Dead men don't talk. That's why you don't want to just use the drone program exclusively. When you find a treasure trove like this, the last thing in the world I think we want to do is turn him over to our civilian court system.
Have you made any direct phone calls or contacts with the administration?
It is, you know, I've been on the floor the last day or two saying, you know, I got my problems with President Obama. I don't believe he's going to kill somebody sitting in a cafe with a drone. There's a lot of things for me to worry about. I just don't think the idea that this administration or any other administration would kill a non-combatant with a submarine, a drone, or an F-16 is not high on my list. So I've been trying to say, listen, I understand what they're up to with the drone program. I think they've been responsible. But clearly, they're not responsible here, and I think this is, quite frankly, being sneaky. I think it has been too clever by half. If they think that we're going to sit on the sidelines and watch a new policy develop that every future capture can never go to Guantanamo Bay, you're going to take them to a third country or take them right to federal court in New York, and we're going to sit by and let you do that, you got another thing coming.
Well, I hope the reporting is wrong. I hope that they do put this individual in Guantanamo Bay. But that's certainly not what has been the pattern here with this administration. For example, I used the Warsami case, who was an individual who was captured, who would have fallen as an enemy combatant. We kept him on a ship. So much so, this administration has acted so much so to avoid putting anyone in Guantanamo that they would go to the extent of putting someone on a ship. I think that tells them what we would like is to make sure that we have the facility in Guantanamo, that facility is a secure facility, that someone like this just isn't immediately put in the civilian court system when it's clear if you're that close to bin Laden, you're someone that we want to make sure that we develop all information that this individual has.
And to the president, if you can't close Guantanamo Bay, and you can't, for God's sakes, use it, because the nation needs it.
I mean, as you know, in the defense authorization this year, there's also another annual prohibition that was agreed to and passed that does not allow the administration to transfer individuals from Guantanamo to U.S. soil. So, as Senator Graham said, the policy of the United States, I think, has been pretty clearly laid out and has been reiterated year after year. In fact, I brought an amendment on the floor on that. I had brought a permanent prohibition passed in the Senate, and in conference it was knocked down to a year. So that tells you in the Senate, where clearly there had to be bipartisan support for it to pass, that has been the policy of our country.
Senator, you mentioned earlier that the two main priorities for Guantanamo is to possibly gather information from its detainees and also provide them some sort of due process.
Absolutely.
Military commission.
Tribunal,
right.
Or what have you. But it seems like the ongoing cases at Gitmo right now, those two missions seems to be butting heads with each other, where at the end, neither of the missions get completed, whereas the intelligence side of those operations are sort of being put back to the mission side, and vice versa. I
don't agree at all. I think Guantanamo Bay over the last decade has been a treasure trove. That's how we got bin Laden. We didn't torture. It wasn't torture. It wasn't waterboarding. It was interrogating people over a long period of time at Guantanamo Bay so that we could put the puzzle together. The military commissions are moving forward for the architect of 9/11, KSM. He's getting his full day in court. He'll have civilian review of any verdict. I'm proud of the system. It takes time, but it's American military justice on display for the world to see. We're talking about future captures. This is why we're here today. This is one of the first future captures we've had. The other guy was put on a ship for 60 days. What kind of detention policy is that? Name one military in the history of warfare that had to resort to putting someone on a ship for 60 days to gather intelligence. In the history of our military conflicts, we've had a viable jail to hold enemy combatants. This guy didn't rob a liquor store. He's a spokesman close to, as you can see, the people who killed over 2,900 Americans. And now we got our hands on him. Why in the world are we treating him as if he's some common criminal? And why in the world is he not at Guantanamo Bay being held by us under our terms and conditions as long as it reasonably takes to get good intelligence? And if they tell me we've got all we need to know, my question is, who is we? How long have we had him? Where did we have him? Thank y'all.